Welcome back, everybody. I'm John Stiles with Bridge Realty, and I'm here with John and Talyssa from HYR Building LLC. So far, we've discussed what an ADU is, what an ADU is used for, the design, permitting, and construction process. And now we're going to get into some frequently asked questions. Now, I know one of the most common questions you receive is, do I need to install a sprinkler system to an ADU?
Well, John, this is a pretty complex question, and there's a few answers, but to try and make it as concise as possible, if you're adding an ADU internally or detached and it's the second living unit, then no, you do not need to sprinkler it. If, however, you are adding an ADU and it's the third living unit, then yes, you will have to sprinkler it. If that ADU is internal in the basement or the attic, you will have to sprinkler the entire structure, including the ADU. If, however, that ADU is detached, then you only have to sprinkler the ADU and not the existing structure.
So a lot of variables there, and it might be a little bit confusing still. So we want to encourage you to check out the show notes where we're going to provide a link to more details that will explain this further. And it's really important to understand the sprinkler system. Not only is it an expense up front to install it, but there are ongoing expenses with a sprinkler system. I know from firsthand experience, I live in a triplex that was built in 2006. It came with a sprinkler system right at construction. And there are annual costs to inspect the sprinkler, like the plumbing part of it, as well as the alarm monitoring part of it. And then there are monthly expenses for 2 phone lines that are required in order to make sure that the alarm monitor can connect to a monitor station. So it's an important thing to understand. Another question that a lot of people have is, do I need 2 points of egress into the ADU?
Yes and no. If the ADU is in the basement and it has a direct walkout to the backyard, then you only need that 1 point of exit. Keep in mind, if there is a bedroom in the ADU, you do need a fire egress, which is normally in the case of a window going out through the bedroom. If the ADU is in the attic, then yes, you would need 2 means of egress, which is typically done by putting a deck with stairs off the back of the house that lead directly to the ground floor, and then also through an internal staircase leading through the house and outside. However, if you add a sprinkler system, then you only need 1 point of egress.
Another big question that people have is, do I need sound separation between the 2 or 3 units?
Yes, so you typically need sound separation in an internal unit. And so if you're doing an attic versus a basement addition for an ADU, you will need sound separation in terms of bat insulation, sound channels, normally 5/8 drywall, to ensure that the vibrations and sounds aren't coming through each level. The city requires a minimum soundproof rating, but we recommend that you go above and beyond those requirements, so you're adding a little bit more to the budget to ensure that the vibrations and sound ratings are much higher than what the city actually requires.
If you stick to the minimums, you will tend to regret it because sound will still move through, especially with vibrations.
Yep, that's an important thing to consider as well. Obviously, in a multifamily situation, you're going to have another family or another person living in that other unit, and you don't necessarily want to hear everything that's going on in that other space. So is it common for an ADU to be on top of a garage?
Yes, it is. This is the most common ADU that we see in the city of Minneapolis. The advantage is that if you're doing a detached ADU, it's much more economical going above the garage than going next to the garage or in the backyard. However, you have to keep in mind that the existing garage is suitable to support the new ADU on top. Typically, our engineers will design a series of spread footings so it's not relying on the existing foundation system of the garage. But absolutely, the garage needs to have a foundation system. Every now and then we'll see garages that were just built slab on grade, which won't allow for the ADU to be on top, and this will typically mean a new garage build in addition to the ADU.
Okay. Is it ever a possibility to put your ADU in the front of the property, in the front of the existing structure?
Actually, no, they're not allowed to be in front of the property. They are obviously allowed to be at the rear of the property, which is the benefit of the ADU, because if you are doing a duplex or triplex, it actually, all the entrances need to be at the front of the property. So that's why people sometimes choose the ADU option, because they can build that detached or attached unit in the rear.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, speaking about duplexes and triplexes, I know that we have some investors watching this video series and wondering, why would you do an ADU versus just building a duplex or triplex?
Yes, so there's a variety of factors that we've touched on, including the pricing and the cost that you're saving for doing the ADU from the city fees, and as well as the placement of the ADU. And sometimes, depending on the property you're purchasing, an ADU only works in the backyard, and you can't necessarily have access from the front. So those are two huge factors why you would choose the ADU option, but you have to reside in the property. So most of the time, investors won't be residing in the property, and they'll be choosing the duplex to quadruplex option.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So if somebody watching this video decides that they do want to add a unit, whether it's an ADU or just a multifamily addition, what would be the next steps in your services that you provide?
So the next steps would be a feasibility study. We meet with the owners to walk through the site, see what the options are for the ADU or the multifamily, and we produce a report that normally costs $150, but if you watch this video and mention this video, we'll give you a 50% discount. Once you have that, we can then begin the design process, and if it is feasible, make sure that we design it accordingly to everything that we ran through in that report.
Okay, perfect. So if the feasibility study comes back good and you're ready to move on, what will be the next step?
Yeah, now we're in the design phase, and a lot of people typically ask how much these fees are. For our firm, we, depending on a variety of factors, will charge anywhere between $3,000 to $15,000. It depends if the ADU is, or the duplex is internal or detached. And then once the design portion is done, the permit fees will also range. Like we mentioned before, this is based on valuation of construction. So this can range anywhere between $1,500 to $10,000.
What about how much should a owner plan for the construction costs?
Yeah, a lot of this will depend on material choices, feasibility, viability, etc. And the contractor that you're selecting, or if you're doing owner-builder. If the unit is internal, we typically see these ranging anywhere between $30,000 to $100,000. Again, this depends. If the unit is detached, this is based off of price per square foot, and it can range anywhere between $150 to infinity, but normally $150 to $250 a square foot. And again, this is based on materials and kind of all the factors that we've explained before.
So hopefully this has answered the majority of your questions today. Of course, if you do have additional questions, you can always contact myself or John and Talyssa. But that's going to wrap up this video. So in the next video, we're going to be discussing investors who are converting a single family to a duplex or a triplex. So be sure to stick around for that one, and we'll see you there.